All right, welcome everyone. Okay, it's about a minute after the top of the hour, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, welcome everyone to this session of the ETHOSystems year-end information and webinar for 2025. Yes, we are headed into 2026. Wow, can you believe it? Like this year just zipped by. It feels like the last 5 years has just been crazy, right, guys? But nevertheless, we've got a lot of work to do. I know that a lot of you come from some legacy software that your month end and your year end closing processes are a lot, right? We have so much going on. So these are loosely the agenda that we're going to address for today. One thing I wanted to address was the retained earnings, right? It's a little bit different in Sage Intacct compared to what you've probably experienced in legacy software. As far as we are real-time reporting, right? You post something, it comes live with your data. So the retained earnings are handled just a little bit differently in Sage Intacct. And I just want to make sure that you understand how that works. We'll talk about different things with the opening and closing overview. We'll start with closing summaries, what that means. Summaries are a lot like batches in Sage Intacct, closing subledgers, and then finally closing down the general ledger. Also, gosh, it could have been last year or so they released this option to actually fully lock, because before it was if you were closed, right? You couldn't go in, you could still make adjustments to the adjustments option. However, now they have an option that is additional. You can close it, but then you can even lock it down to where you can't even adjust it without the adjustments, without a certain way of unlocking it. So we're going to go through that. And then we'll loosely touch on some of that 1099 year-end information. All right, so let's start here from the beginning, like I promised, with the retained earnings information. Okay, in Sage Intacct, because you are now working in a live real-time reporting application, you are in a continual virtual close. Yes, always. You can report on any of this at any time that you are using Sage Intacct throughout the year. So during a virtual close, the retained earnings are calculated as the sum of all income statements, our income statement accounts for the given period, right? So because the virtual close at the end of any user-defined period updates your retained earning balance. Let me repeat that. The virtual close at the end of any user-defined period, and what it's saying with user-defined period, it just means period. Some of you are on a regular calendar year, some of you are on a fiscal year. So when it's saying user-defined period, that's just stating for those of you that are maybe like, on that fiscal year, custom period settings. So the close book function, which I'm going to show you about, there's a close and open function. Some of you are probably already familiar with it. And I know the question you're probably asking yourself, is it really that easy, right? Because in my mind, it really is. And does not cause a retained earning roll forward, right? So the close book function is not causing that retained earnings roll forward, nor does it zero out income and expense accounts for the period being closed, because it's always in a virtual close, right? So it's always doing that. So therefore, you're going to be able to report across any time period and see that revenue and expense balance based on the report setup. And what it's saying here is over time or within the retained earnings account. So it's talking about the report setup, reporting periods that you are selecting essentially, okay? And then within any of your retained earning accounts, right? We're never posting direct to retained earnings, we're using them to move those funds. Now, where I find that people get hung up in reporting, right, is that the periods that they're using. It takes a little bit maybe to get used to. They might not work the same as they did in your legacy software based on different filters and stuff. But in Sage Intacct, the as of date field, right? The as of date filter. That is the one that you see on every standard or canned, whatever you want to call them. We call them standard reports in Sage Intacct. All those reports have filters. And the main filter you're going to see is the as of date. Now, if you left that as of date blank, remember, it's going to default to the current date. For example, if I left the as of date blank on my reporting or dashboards filter, it's going to default to 12/18/2025. Okay. If you update that or leave it blank, doesn't matter. It references also the reporting period. So for example, current month, current quarter, current year, whatever that looks like for you. And we like to explain this for the retained earnings to help you kind of wrap your head around how you're going to pull out the data that's relevant to your specific reporting periods, right? So all of these are kind of similar, but based on that reporting period, the beginning balance plus the sum of all income statements, accounts from inception through last completed month is going to give you January 1, October 31, based on current month reporting period and as of date of November 15th. Current quarter, same concept, but it's based on that current quarter reporting period. So January through September based on November 15th and so on. Okay. So just remember that. And also when you're working with any financial reports, right, those current dates are the options for the reporting periods in each column. And therefore you will be able to offset those to prior period or future period, right? You can roll those periods, 99 periods forward or backwards. And, you know, that's going to expand your report out and expand those columns for you. If you ever need or want like that one-on-one time to go through something like this, you know, put in a support case. We are always happy to explain that for you. Okay, so something else that I think is either you've never seen it or, you know, the verbiage is throwing you off or just something you've never used is the summaries option. Okay, I'm going to go through this presentation and I am going to show you all of these different things. And what's going to happen is I'm going to get into the live environment in my demo and show you where these live as well. And you probably already know, you've probably already seen it in your alt tab and things like that. But closing summaries. Summaries, again, are a lot like batches. Notice these are the examples of the summaries in my demo environment. Now, with that being said, remember, when we are implementing, there is an option that says, what summary view would you like in your company configuration, right? Do you want it one per transaction, one per month, one per week, right? This is what it's referring to, okay? The summary view. Now, with construction, we always have one per transaction because we need that level of detail, right? We want that level of detail for reference points. We want that level of detail for reporting and things like that. So if you wanted to, you could close individual summaries in Sage Intacct in AP, AR, and expenses. Now I put in quotes here, time and expense modules. Remember, they used to be one single module. And if you noticed in your interface a couple releases ago, they split them out. It's now time and expense modules, right? So the expenses does have this capability for the opening and closing as well. So when you go in, this is an example of opening the close and open direct from the subledger, which I will show you. But if this was AP, AR, you know, cash management, it's all going to look the same. It's just going to change this verbiage here. You get this filter. Now, one thing to note, and you're going to notice this when I'm in my demo, because I have multi-currency, multi-entity. My demo set up much differently probably than most of your configurations. So please pay no mind whether I'm in the entity or the top level. Our best practice recommendation is you always do all of this stuff at the top level. Are there some of you not doing that? Yes, there's always exceptions, especially in the construction world. Right? You might be a developer, you might be, you know, all these different scenarios. But if you're at the top level, and you should be, you're going to get an entity filter. Okay. If you leave this entity filter blank, it behaves the same as other filters in the system, that if you leave them blank, it's going to filter on all your data. So it doesn't matter. If you have 40 entities, it is going to filter on all 40 entities and you will be closing those, right? So we typically wouldn't be doing that. We typically would be coming in, selecting our entity. If you only are a single entity, no worries, it doesn't matter, right? But if you have multiple entities, typically you have a closing process for your month end, your year end, whatnot. You want to select your entity. The close subledger from. Okay, this one is going to tell you the last time that you closed. So anytime you're wondering, there's multiple places in the system you can go see where that was closed from. I have some cool reports on a dashboard I'm going to show you. But this one, it looks funky. It's like, wow, 1970. That's because my demo at top level, I don't close from top level on my demo. But you know, you're going to see whatever date it is. Doesn't matter really what the date is, but just to show you. So to the end of the period filter, okay, close subledger from, to the end of the period filter, you hit this drop down and you're going to have all of your reporting periods that you have set up in the system. And if you don't have the right reporting period set up in your system, which should have been done before you went live, right? You know, you can always go in and you can add and edit reporting periods as you need to for your specific company. Okay, so if you're closing a summary, you could come in, you can say select your entity, your period if that's applicable, and then select individual transactions. These ones look more like batches because of how the setting is, but you can have individual transactions in here. The biggest thing to know here, don't ever forget that even if you close every single summary, every single individual transaction, which would be crazy, a lot of work, but it still isn't going to close down your subledger. And if your subledger isn't complete, the system isn't completely closed until your GL's closed, right? See where I'm going? You can go the bottom, the deepest level in the hierarchy and be closing transactions. Most people don't go to that level, but there could be those one-off situations. You're just like, we need to get that transaction locked down. I don't want anything, you know, tied to that outside of what we've done. So that capability lives in Sage Intacct. Okay, so just to kind of rehash all of that, you can close summaries in a period or individually by summary name. After the summary is closed, you cannot post transactions to that summary unless you reopen it. Yes, you can reopen it. All of these things in Sage Intacct, typically there's a way to reopen it, but don't always assume with every single transaction or task in Sage that it's that way. But you'll typically be, you know, notified with information saying if you do this, this is permanent. But so any of these closings, just like your reconciliation, right? Like let's even back up to that. You're going to be reconciling, getting all of those things closed, you know, all you know, sealed and everything's looking good before you do all of this, right? That's kind of the obvious statement before that you're closing. You want to make sure everything's reconciled and good. But, you know, and then you can come in and you can close these summaries if you want to. When you're closing the summaries in AP and AR, select to the end of the period. That's that filter that, you know, one of those fields I showed you on the last slide. And that will close both bill and invoice summaries and adjusting summaries. Okay, so everything that's involved with that is a transaction of that summary, right? Associated to it, it'll close it down. To close a specific bill or invoice or adjusting summary, select it from the drop down. You guys got to see that. And then also, this is a good one to note because the way our minds think in a lot of legacy systems, if you go before or after, it affects the period before or after when you're closing. Open summaries that have not been closed are not, I repeat, not automatically closed when you close summaries for a subsequent period. Okay, so for example, suppose you have closed summaries for Q1 but not Q2. If you close summary for Q3, Q2 is still open. See how that works? Because that is the point of the closing summaries, because sometimes we have to go out of the norm. Next option is, you know, that you go in and you actually close the subledgers one by one. Now, this is a very common way of handling your closing. And a lot of times people will have a checklist that you're running probably in an Excel workbook outside of the system. You can bring that all into Sage Intacct now, okay? So above and beyond our Copilot assistant, we do have in the system where you can create checklists and assign assignments, and then it will email users and you can track where you are in the closing process, right? So that's available to you with your core package. You don't need the Copilot closing assistant for that. But so we've been doing that. Now, it is a little bit of a lift because you have to enter all of those assignments and then assign the assignment to the checklist. But once you do it, it's one and done, right? And then it's all in the system. So closing the books for a period is going to close all open transaction summaries, which we were just referring to, and the cash management period. So that's available for accounts payable, accounts receivable, expenses, and cash management. Okay. I did this drop down with the periods on this slide just to show you, because I couldn't show it to you on the other one with both of those drop downs, but see what I mean? So if you have custom reporting periods, and if you haven't been set up this way, I highly recommend it because it helps decipher the reporting periods in the system. When you set up a custom fiscal period, it would typically say fiscal month ended January 2022, fiscal first quarter, right? So the fiscal verbiage will be added in the front, and make sure that those are the periods that you're selecting when you're on a fiscal year, okay? Otherwise, numbers ain't going to add up, guys. You're going to be off a little bit and be wondering what's going on. And that does happen because we forget. But by subledger, we mean all transactions in each application. So for AP, that would include the following. Just like I said previously, bill and adjustment summaries that users can directly access, invisible transactions that involve payments. It means invisible, it means what's happening behind the scenes, right? And then the inter-entity transfers. And that's only if you're set up. This is referring to inter-entity transfers, inter-entity transactions for people that are truly set up as inter-entity using the inter-entity configuration in Sage Intacct. If you're not doing that and you're using it the old school way, then you don't have to worry about it. But I think you get the idea there. All right. So this one you can see, right? I selected the entity. And most everything I do in my demo, I do in my Timberline GC general contractor entity. And then you can see, okay, the last time I closed was 2/1 of 2022. Okay. And you'll notice too that all of a sudden, okay, that period isn't available in the drop down for that option. Closing GL. Okay. Hold the phone, guys. Like, yes. It's this simple. Closing the general ledger is comprised of the same steps as it is to close any period within Sage Intacct. There's no special voodoo or anything like that you have to do. Okay, so you're going to go in and you're going to go to that open and close feature in GL, and you will close from there. Now, when you're closing GL, remember, it is actually closing everything. So you could just hop on forward. This would not be a best practice. This would not be recommended. You want to be doing your monthly closes so you know, like, okay, this is where we went wrong, right? That's the main reason, like, oh, if there's any discrepancy month by month, we can handle it, right? You're not having to go back for 6 months. So it's always good to kind of pay attention to that. So even if you close all summaries, your subledger is not closed. You have to intentionally close the subledger. But let's just say whatever was going on, you knew everything was good. So you just hop right into GL and you close GL. GL is never closed until you intentionally go and close it. That's the big thing to know. You can close every summary, every subledger. That does not mean GL's closed. You have to intentionally still say, hey, GL, we're going to close you now. Okay. So that's the big thing to know there. You know, here's some prerequisites, little notes I wanted to just make sure that you were aware of. For fiscal years that match calendar years, the reporting period is created for you. That's what I was just speaking to. Your reporting period for fiscal is going to say fiscal month ended, you know, January 2022 or whatever. For fiscal years that operate in different range, create that reporting period first. Yes, you have to create that reporting period, you know, in order to use it in the report, right? Think of the cadence and of the order of operations, essentially, right? It has to exist to be able to do it. Number 3, I put a couple extra asterisks there because I wanted to make sure you pay attention to that. if your fiscal year runs March through February, create a reporting period named fiscal year end. Okay. I think I beat that one to death for you guys this morning. And then, you can create your reporting period straight out of GL under that more menu at GL setup tab, the more option. It is like lower right-hand corner. I call it the junk or miscellaneous menu option because we throw things like reporting periods, terms, those one-off little tasks that might not have a specific, place in the menu. Okay, so closing the GL, we'll close all summaries and sub ledgers. So let's just say if you were in that open close window for GL and you didn't select any entities, you select your period, right? And then you say, let's close GL. Then you are going to, close everything, right? So for all of your entities. This is a cool little feature because, right, the big thing that we're always, working towards, and if you've ever worked with me, I'm very report oriented. And so this is a really cool little thing I thought that might be helpful for y'all is that, number 2 here, set run at close. And what it's talking about run at close is this right here. So, in Sage Intacct, we have a ton of automation available for you. If you're ever wondering, can I automate something? Ask us. We probably can, because if it doesn't already exist in Sage Intacct, then there's all that capability with the customizations, right? Smart events, smart rules, things like that will trigger different tasks. But with recurring, right? Recurring invoices, recurring bills, recurring journal entries, those are automated. Those are set up by you. We typically give it a schedule. So you can set run and close, and you can enter a beginning and end date when scheduling. For recurring schedules, it's recommended that you select the following GL close instead. So this option right here. Okay, you may or may not have ever noticed it in there when you're setting up a scheduled report. And what you can do, what the system will do is when you close your GL, it triggers this reporting set to pop off and generate for you. If you've ever used the process and store, right, for the memorized reports or scheduling reports, you know that it goes into your report center or report manager, and you can go to, or even the list view, and you go to my stored reports, and you'll be able to find them. And furthermore, you will get an email saying, hey, your reports are ran and they're out there for you. And it usually has like a link that connects. But again, you set up all the reporting parameters or filters, whatever you like to call those. And then you say, okay, following general ledger close. Also, notice these filters up here, right? Dimensions, right? The point of dimensions is deeper reporting. So we can really slice and dice that data, really get into the deets of what we need to for better information to make better informed decisions for our company. Dimension group, location group, project group. Notice these are dimension groups, okay? So remember, when you are in your, like, dashboard is the best example I can give. It exists for reports too, but like when you go in and you select a location filter, you'll also see any groups of dimensions that you've made. So for example, for projects, I'm always tracking, different types of projects. And so probably I have that group that's out there, right? So that's just all it means. And then again, right, our as of date, if you leave it blank, it runs it for the current date, which is typically what we're doing for closing processes. But if you leave it blank, that is the best practice recommendation. As of date, leave it blank when you're scheduling reports, because think about it. We want it to run for the current date, right? If you put a date in here, it's going to lock that report down to only that date, and you're going to get the same report every single time. So, okay. Unlocking close periods and locking. Let's see, did I have a lock one here? Okay, let me just double check something on my slide. Yeah, locking. Okay, let's start with that. So remember, once you close your books, there's always those times, right, that we need to go back in and make edits and adjustments and stuff. So we'll talk to that. But perhaps you want to really lock it down to where you can't even go in and use the adjustments option that I'm going to show you in a minute. And so you can lock it completely down. And yes, you will be able to go back and unlock it. And it's a little wonky how it does it. So if you forget, these steps are available for you in help, or you can always refer back here. But if you go in to close the books, you select the period that you want to lock, and then you select close books, and all the period up to and including the one selected are locked. Okay, so that means you've already closed your books. You go back in, you select the closed period in this drop down, and then you say close books. Then you will get this message here. Your books have been closed, right? And so then that way, you know, it'll say that it's locked down. This is just a little note here showing you the different ways that you could go in and find what the last time you closed, but I have even a better way to show you, which is a report on a dashboard. Okay, so unlocking, right? It's kind of the same thing. You go back in, you select the closed books, you select the closed period you want to unlock, and it's not intuitive in that way. It doesn't say, okay, you're going to unlock now. It feels like you're going back through the lock process. So, but then you go in, you select it, you hit close books, and then it'll say, okay, you know, you're unlocked now to make that an edit, and then you can go back and lock it again. So what is the options, right? If we do need to make adjustments, we can open the books, we can open the summary, we could open the subledger. When you go into GL, you'll notice this screen looks a little bit different than what you see directly out of the subledgers, because in addition to the open and company books from the beginning of the period selection, you can then select here directly from here just to open a single subledger. Right? Because maybe we need to go in and make an edit to something in AP only, right? The only reason we don't have an entity filter up here, guys, sorry, this might have been a better example if I did it at top level. This is because I'm in an entity level. I wanted to kind of show you this closing date. So you will have an entity selector always for that, okay? But just say you wanted to go in, I just wanted to get in there real quick and open AP real fast, right? Same for cash management, AR, open, time, and expense. It's really that easy, guys. Now, one thing to remember, permissions always override. You need to have permissions added to your user role. Hopefully you guys are set up with role permissions. That's our best practice recommendation, because then when enhancements happen during the releases or any kind of new tasks that might be added to somebody's role, you just edit the role. You don't have to go in and do it to every single user. Okay, so if you're not set up with roles, you should be, and we'd love to help you with that. Now, typically what I recommend with my clients is that as a best practice, we do not give this adjusting journal entry permission to everybody. Okay, we lock that down. We save them from themselves, right? Like this is something that really should be like an all access admin access only, right? Type of permissions and role. So you can use the adjustment journal entries list to enter adjustments for accounting periods that are already closed. And my little note here, you can add an adjusting journal entry only if the books are closed. And it's like, okay, Ray, that seems common sense. The reason I said that was because, if they're not closed, and they're still open, when you go into this option, you'll think, well, it doesn't look closed. It's not closed. So then in that case, you would just make a regular journal entry, right? Because it's already, it hasn't been closed. But this option does let you make adjustments to close books. And this is a great feature because we don't want to open the books all the time, right? It's dangerous. And so, yeah. So definitely recommend, a minimum of 1 and maximum of 2 people having this option, but you do what's best for your company and your workflow. When you select that option in the adjusting, you're going to get this screen. I'm sorry it's so large, but as you can see, because I'm construction based, I have all of my dimensions showing up in this entries table because I like to be able to tag a lot of things for reporting. But when you come in, you're going to have this drop down here for this adjusting journal. If you don't have an adjustments journal, think about how you want to have it, because most people, we just have a single adjustments journal. But sometimes people want to say AP adjustment, AR adjustment, or adjustments by certain categories that they're used to or they like, and the point of these journals in Sage Intacct, which is something I feel like is new to a lot of people, is we have multiple journals we set up by default to categorize, organize, and segregate your transactions in the system, right? So they're easy to find. So I'm like, oh, I had an AP issue. Let me get in the journal and see what happened there. Let's see if so you can find transactions easily in your journals. The other thing I always remind people, don't forget about the global search in the system, the upper right-hand corner search option in your interface. That you could just type in $500 and it will search all entities, every transaction, pops up a list view, and you can click on it and drill down. So if you ever lose things, you can do that. But just know that's the point. The point of the journals is to be able to easily find transactions. Okay. You can also, so you can say what posting date, but you can also set it up for a reversal date too. So the times people are thinking, well, why would I do that? Depreciation, right? Amortization, that type of stuff. Some people like to use these automatic reversal dates. Comments, you can put like 1,000 characters in there, so you could write a book if you wanted. A reference number field, and then of course your hard copy attachments. But remember, everything has a debit, has a credit. And yes, you can post it, or you can create it and just have it sitting out there as a draft, right? Maybe you want to set it all up and then you want to have somebody go in and actually look at it before you post it. That's available. Posted new and drafted new. Remember, those features are just, they'll keep you in this screen. If I say post here, it's going to take me back to the journal itself, the list views, right? So that is how the entire system works with all those list views. I'm going to get into the system and show you this dashboard, but I just wanted to show you, hey, create yourself a dashboard for all these reports, guys. You shouldn't have to go in and run them every time, or run them to where they're process and store. And they're just like, when you do process and store, it's great, but they're also dynamic, right? Or static, right? They are what they are. If you throw all of your data onto a dashboard, everything is live time. Your trial balance is up to date. Your P&Ls, your income statements, your balance sheets, everything is available to you on a single click. Now, one thing to note, right? You notice that I know you all are looking at the dates and things. These column dates, periods, or can be anything you want. We just go into this little edit pencil and edit the report. Right? If we want something that we don't want to edit this base report, always rename your reports, guys. So in my case, I'd say ethos-P&L detail. So that way I know that's the report I've updated. But we can have this year over year, like month ending, quarter ending, year ending, right? These reporting period columns can be anything you want. So nothing is ever totally in stone. We can make those edits for you. Okay, let me see here. Hold on one sec. I want to take a look. I got something here to verify, and then I'm going to jump in and do a demo for you guys. In fact, I think I'm going to do that little demo right here, right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the old system. And what I wanted to show you, and don't mind, again, this is my demo. I have a lot of different entities, so I work primarily at the entity level. So just pay no mind. Please work at top level, guys. I can't stress that enough. When you start doing things at entity level, if you haven't already done that and messed things up, you know that you can't merge those records. You have to inactivate them. You have to manually re-enter them. So at top level, you're able to access all of the entity level data if you do it at top level. So just remember that. Now let me blow this up a little bit because I feel like it's a little bit small for us to see. Okay. And I'm going to show you. Okay. Let's just go into like AP. Oh, first, my mouse is going to act funky on me today. Okay. In AP, just like any other, like cash management, time or expenses, excuse me, cash management, AR, all of that, this is your option. go to the All tab, and then you'll notice, and if you don't see these options, it might be that you have your font blown up like I do. And I do apologize about that. Okay. But you can see here, right? You can open and close straight from here. It looks just like it did on the slide. Okay. Be in top level. You know your last date that you were closed. Select your period or a single summary. GL. We go into GL. We have open close, right? And let me do this one. Actually, I will go into the top level on this one. Let me just replicate that. So I want you to see that application drop down. Okay. Hold on, I don't know when I clicked out there. Give me one sec. Okay, right? See, so now you have the entity selection. So just that'll be your clue, like, okay, maybe I'm not in the right section. The next thing I wanted to show you here too, the opening and closing overview. Also, let's take a look at how we close those summaries. I should have done that while I was in there. We'll go into AR on this one just so you can see that we have, right? Close, open, payment summaries and summaries. Okay, so that is extremely helpful because there's just times that, you know, we want to be able to close those options. Let's just take a look here. Payment summaries. This is kind of a new feature. This new enhanced view is pretty cool because these filters work really well, but I do find that it's a little bit much on the eyeballs until we get totally used to it. So I'm going to go back to the old view, right? But then you can come in here, those payment summaries, this takes you in. So like you could say, oh, wait, is that the right summary or whatnot? Okay. And then again, the big thing I wanted to show you here was take advantage of creating dashboards. Now, notice I have a department, I have my location, I have my projects filter, okay? And I filtered it out already because of my demo data. I wanted to be able to populate data that didn't look really ugly on the screen. So, but you know, you can make any of these P&Ls by any dimension you want. So I kind of did that down here just to show you. And that's one way you could filter it down by the department or the location and things like that. Or you just use your filters up here. I really like building reports and dashboards to where they are more dynamic. So then that way, any of these filters do affect the reports. Also, you can have the reports not be affected by these filters on the dashboard, and they have their own filters. But as you can see here, these two are the things I wanted to really show you was these close through summary and close through summary entity view closing reports. These reports are not available in the regular like report manager. You actually do need to add them to a dashboard in order to get to them, okay? And I did both. They're the same closing report, but just different views. So if you're dealing with a lot of entities, I do find that this close through summary entity view is much better, more detailed for you, right? And then this drill down just goes into the close and open option. And then you can do it by you know, by the module as well, okay? And then what it'll do is it's going to show you, well, let's just see if I can see it on this. Let me go ahead and drop down into my entity. Okay, so because how my setup is, right, you would have normally seen all of that at the top level. In your environment, you will, because you're going to do best practice and you're going to work at top level, please. But this close through and see, and now you've got dates, right? Okay, so I know that's where I was. But you know, I just don't, I just feel like this is such a great way to always be tracking, right? Your virtual close is always going, and you can pop in and take a peek at your dashboard anytime you want. You can even have your dashboard load on your home screen. I don't always recommend that. If you have a ton of data, then just expect that it'll take a minute for Sage Intacct to load at the end of the day. But just like anything else, right? You can drill down into all the underlying GL data and all the way down to the very tiny, the very detailed information. Now I'm going to jump into 1099s. We're going to flip back onto the slide deck, and I'm going to do that. And I just wanted to show you this. Like, you know, there's two 1099 reports that live in the system, okay? Because we're going to jump into 1099s now, and I want to show you where they are because sometimes people struggle finding them, okay? If you go into AP, you should have this 1099 report available to you. If you don't, you can also go into reports, right? Remember, my best practice recommendation, if you've ever taken any of my reporting courses, is that we manage everything from the report center, okay? And so I believe, yeah, right? We start typing in 1099, all applications. So I've got a 1099 report. That's nice. But this 1099 detail, as you can see, it's an ICRW report, which means that it is much more robust. And so you can come in, and right now I have filters because I just wanted to get some data for you guys. And you can do any types, any 1099 types that apply to you and things like that. And then, yeah, you can drill down into the data straight from that report. Okay. So again, that is live time. It exists. It's always available. One click. You don't have to go in and then, you know, go back and run it intentionally. It can just live on your dashboard. But then you can see, right? We get down into all of the detail. You want to know what's been going on with the retainage. Boom. There we go. Right. So, all right, let me go ahead and minimize here, and let's talk a little bit about those 1099s. Sage Intacct also always does a lot of information on 1099s because I know that, like in 300, I come from the 300 Sage Trainer CRE background, that 1099s are always a big lift, right? So, what does it look like in Sage Intacct? First, you're going to set up your 1099 vendor types. Vendor type, not just vendor, vendor type. In the system, right, there's all these types, and these types are identifying records in Sage Intacct. And so the type typically is tying to something very important in Sage Intacct, like reporting and things like that. In this case, we need to have vendor type of 1099 set up in the system. And then you assign the appropriate 1099 form and box as the default type for that vendor. There is an import for this, guys. So one thing to remember with Sage Intacct is that typically once you import data, it is what it is. You can't re-import data over the top of it and make changes to it, right? It's like, oh, my vendors were, or my, let's say my customer record was incorrect. I'm just going to re-import the correct information and the system will update it. It doesn't work that way most of the time. However, Sage Intacct, thank you, Sage, always has our back on our requests, you know, is that the vendor record does have certain functionality that does allow for you to edit and update with import templates, such as the 1099 information. Thank you for that, right? So you can use the import for that. Also, there's an additional ACH vendor import as well. Okay, so don't feel like you have to manually enter anything into Sage Intacct one by one. Typically, we have workarounds for it, guys. Okay, so, but you have to set up the 1099 vendor type. You have to set up that vendor record for 1099, just like you have to set up the vendor record for the preferred payment method, those types of things. You have to tell the system. Review and update 1099 vendor information. So verify that all 1099 vendors are properly set up with the correct 1099 form. Multiple ways. Go to your vendor detail information. Set up a view. List views are way underused in Sage Intacct because they essentially, a list view works a lot like a report. What do I mean by a list view? your vendors list, your bills list, your invoice list, your project contract list, your project list. All of those lists have a way to set up in the upper left-hand corner a specific view. You can create yourself a 1099 view if you like, but there is a 1099 detail list in the Alt tab. So again, you just want to really be careful that you're verifying all and confirming that things are properly set up on your vendors with the correct 1099 form and box, because making mistakes is always a pain, right? It kind of snowballs into something bigger every time. So just be very careful, double check, have a second. For me, I have a second set of eyes on everything I do, because, you know, it's always nice just to, people see things that we don't. So update any missing or incorrect information. I just showed you where this was in the system. Okay, so remember, AP, you can go into the All tab and you'll see that 1099 report there. The as of date, right? The predefined reporting period. Those are important. So if you're not getting the right data, just start with the as of date in the reporting period. That's probably 95% of the time what the issue is. Okay. Filter the report to include only the relevant vendors or employees, right? There's a 1099 employee capability. Most people are not doing that in Sage Intacct. Most people have a payroll system or something that's handling that, but do know that it is available for you in here. Review the report, sure all 1099 eligible transactions are properly captured, okay? Another example of that 1099, well, this is the 1099 report. Let me see, I think I have the detail one. Yeah. Okay. So here's the difference, guys. Here's the 1099 report that lives in Sage Intacct. It's an awesome report, right? And you can filter these. This one's a little bit hard coded. And so that's therefore why we have an ICRW version out there as well. But yes, you know, the filters and things like that, you can filter out for your vendor or employee and whatnot. You can drill down into the underlying detail. You can filter it to make it look the way you want. And then for me, I do like this 1099 details one, just because I feel like it's a little more information and drill down in the form types. And we can add columns and edit these guys in ICRW. So if you need something more, but just remember, with reporting, less is more. I feel like when people start getting too crazy with too many things, it's hard to read your reports. So oh yeah, and where is that ICRW report, right? 1099 report, here's the one that comes with that, the basic one, but the ICRW reports, if you don't use that reports in report manager, you can always add the report to the menu. So in the ICRW list view, I go in and I say add to menu, and then boom, I can get to it a little faster. It's just one of many ways to do it in Sage Intacct. Okay. Correcting any 1099 issues. Okay. If you find any transactions that are incorrectly tagged or missing, what do we do? The sky's falling. You can come in and you can update, right? So this is the company setup import data. Remember, company setup import data. Import data is all your list of all those awesome templates that Sage Intacct has created for us already. Also, don't forget, you can't see it, but up here you're going to notice a hyperlink to the new import service. I haven't taken full advantage of it yet, but it's really cool. Not all of the import templates are available there yet, but what Sage is doing is kind of making those import errors a little more like able to make sense a little more, right? Like some of them were a little vague or cryptic in the past, right? So they're working really hard to make the customer end user experience a little better with the errors and also the file types, different formats and stuff like that. So pretty cool. Okay. And finally, last but not least, this is an IRS requirement, not a Sage Intacct requirement so much. For 10 or more 1099s, file electronically through a service like Tax Bandits. Tax Bandits is you guys, if you come from Sage 300 or Sage 100 world, then you guys are familiar with Tax Bandits. They have been, you know, invaluable. They do a great job. But if you have fewer than 10 1099s, order the official forms, and file manually. Okay, so all of those report forms and everything like that. Oh, I actually have a list of some links I'm going to share with you. So I'm going to put those in chat. Give me just a second here. And these are links that you guys can find easily on your own, but I know that sometimes that can be frustrating when you're a little bit new to the system. So give me 1 second. I said that I'm having a hard time accessing that list. Give me 1 moment here. They are. Oh yeah, these ones are these two. One is a before you print 1099 forms, it takes you to all of this information on how to order official forms and file manually for anything under 10. And then also I added a link for the retained earnings calculation. So, all right, give me 1 sec here. And hopefully, I don't know if they came over. I don't think they came over as a hyperlink. My apologies. Sometimes I can get it come over just fine in a hyperlink, so I'll have to learn what's going on with that. But these are, if you search in help before you print 1099 forms, this will pop up and it will take you to the official forms and how to file manually, and also give you information about tax bandits. Feel free to reach out to us if you need any help with that at all. And then the second one, the retained earnings calculation during virtual close, that's a link kind of back. It looks like that it takes you to that first slide I showed you about the calculations. Okay. If you know, it takes a little bit of getting used to in this Sage Intacct system. And that is everything that I have for you guys today. So if you have any additional questions, you know, please reach out to us through the support channel, and we are happy to help you with that. Also, we have this hyperlink here. This takes you to our website. There is this link for our events and webinars directly on the ETHOSystem website. So if you're ever interested in taking a peek out there at that. Also, as I've mentioned in all my previous webinars, we are in the, you know, we've been growing so much here at Ethos, right? Our team's been growing. And so we've been changing and streamlining processes to better serve you. And a lot of changes have came down the pipeline already for support. There'll be additional ones that you'll be able to go in and manage your own tickets here pretty soon. So stay posted for that. But if you do reach out directly to consultants, we will be redirecting you over to the support area just so we can better serve you and better track, right, all of those requests. So, all right, guys. Well, that is everything. I just want to wish everyone a happy holiday season, and thank you for attending. Bye-bye.